Good morning and welcome to the second digital masterclass session in our 2023 series. Before we get started, I hope you've had the opportunity to view our first masterclass, Digital Marketing in the Age of Privacy, hosted by Ross Britton, Equimedia's COO. If you've not seen it yet, please drop an email to inquiries@equimedia.co.uk and we'll send you a link to the recording. So back to today's session. Guess who? How well do you know your customers? I'm James Corrigan, Equimedia's Planning Director, and I'm joined today by our Head of Media, Amisha Rathod. So today's session is focused on understanding your customers. We'll start with why it's dangerous to make assumptions about who your customers are without performing relevant and specific research to understand your customer base. Next, we'll move on to how you can create a clear picture of your customer base, the importance of this, and some of the tools and methodologies that are available to facilitate this. This will include how you can identify growth opportunities within your existing customer base and new audiences. 82% of marketeers surveyed said that having quality and accurate data on their target audience or customer base is important to succeeding in their role. However, more than 50% of the same group of people said that they're missing out on key customer or audience information, even though they know that they need it. We're going to spend the next 20 minutes or so exploring ways in which you can make sure that you fall into the second half of that category, those that do know their customers and that have all the information. I'm going to hand over now to Amisha.
Thanks, James. So making an assumption about who your customers are could result in you missing out on potential customers outside of your assumed audience segment. One example could be assuming that your customer base falls into a specific age bracket. By continuing to focus your marketing on that one age bracket, you could be missing out on attracting a different but still relevant age profile. This could also mean that your marketing is misaligned with who your customers actually are. Using the same example of age targeting, a younger audience seeing your brand advertised in a space associated with an older demographic could make them feel alienated, thinking that your brand isn't right for them. By understanding your current customer base, you can ensure that you're recognizing all relevant audience segments and tailor your marketing strategy to each, which will be far more efficient and effective. Ultimately, your marketing spend will deliver stronger ROI if you have a clear picture of who your customers are and where those opportunities for growth lie. The key really is to go beyond that traditional view of who your customer is. Saying something broad like ABC1, for example, isn't enough to develop that tailored and effective marketing strategy. You'll want to ensure that you can differentiate your brand amongst competitors, and one of the first steps towards achieving that is to have an in-depth understanding of your customer and being able to leverage that insight to create the point of difference. In addition to that, if you're running campaigns but not seeing growth, that could be a sign that your targeting is not picking up the right type of customer. One thing you will need to know is whether your campaigns are reaching your core customer base or whether you're actually testing outside of that core base. So let's move on to discussing the different ways in which you can start to create that clear picture of who your customer is. So let's start with customer profiling. With a large enough and representative sample of your existing customer base, you can utilize customer profiling systems such as Mosaic to see which of their segments are closely aligned with your current customer base. Postcode data is usually the starting point for this analysis. The analysis will help identify geographical, age, and gender distribution of your audience, as well as other important traits such as marital status, income level, parental status, and media consumption habits. This offers a great starting point to build customer personas, and we'll come on to that a bit more later. Also, I'm sure some of you are working within the B2B industry, so I want to point out that the profiling is still something that you can leverage in this space. Commercial Mosaic is available for profiling businesses, which will provide information on detailed business types. Overlaying SIT codes can enhance your understanding of your current customer industries and business sectors. Now, small businesses are often owner managed with little distinction between work and personal media habits. So it can actually be useful to profile your small business owners if their work address is actually the same as their home address. For companies targeting the smallest businesses, this information about small business owners can provide another set of targeting options when planning campaigns and using digital platforms. Some of the key insights that you'll gain from profiling include the highest indexing advert response channel, so you can factor that into your media campaigns as well as the messaging. There are also existing tools you may already be using, which will give you some insight into who is currently engaging with your brand. Google Analytics is one example, which will allow you to gather insight into what your current website visitors look like. This includes basic demographic insight, but also information on the interests of your users, which relate back to Google's affinity audiences. These audiences can be utilized within paid campaigns running through the Google marketing platform. Additionally, you can tap into insights from platforms such as Meta Business Manager to analyze those who are engaged with your social media. The insights you can gather vary by platform. With Meta, for example, you can see which other brand pages your audience is also engaged with. LinkedIn Analytics will show you the breakdown of your audience based on attributes such as industry, job function, and company size. At Equimedia, we run programmatic campaigns through our in-house trading platform known as Kaizen. Campaign delivery reports can provide us with audience insights ranging from basic demographics through to being able to cross-reference data against the audience segments such as the Google affinity audience, which I mentioned earlier. We can also use reports such as device breakdown to see which devices and platforms are most popular. Lastly, opening up a direct dialogue with your current customers can allow you to gather more bespoke, specific insights. Focus groups and surveys are one way to do this and can be used ahead of projects such as planning a product launch or a brand refresh. This approach is useful for understanding more about behaviours and attitudes. But you can also lean on existing surveys such as TGI that can further enrich your insights. This is particularly useful for media consumption information and understanding the propensity of actions for certain audiences. One example here would be running analysis against one of your key Mosaic segments and including some behavioural statements or statements related to their attitudes towards advertising.
Thanks, Misha. So following a customer profiling report, the next step is to analyse the output in order to understand where growth opportunities lie, and visualising the data can help you spot the opportunities. In this example, the grey section of the graph shows the percentage of the GB population broken out by age bracket, and the green line shows the percentage of the population who have pet insurance. So this tells us that the older demographic, aged 54 plus, has a lower propensity to buy pet insurance, and the sweet spot, those that have the highest propensity to buy, fits within the 35 to 54-year-old age group. The bulk of your customer base might be who you expect it to be. However, profiling could highlight customers that fall in other audience segments which represent a growth opportunity. For example, as Amisha shared earlier, your core customer base might fit into 2 or 3 Mosaic segments, but they are likely to be some secondary segments with lower penetration that also offer a growth opportunity. Tying this in with other factors such as general market and sector trends, competitor activity and search intent, for example, will add context to this. Lastly, being able to see how your competitor base varies in comparison to the whole of the market or sector allows you to establish your point of differentiation or USP that you can then further exploit. Now we know more about our customers, who they are, and where the growth opportunities lie, we can focus our efforts on developing customer personas, which can feed into your marketing strategy and make it more effective. Amisha's now going to talk through how we bring this to life and apply the thinking to live campaigns.
So as I mentioned earlier, the off-the-shelf profiling solutions will give you a great starting point to creating your target audience persona. You can then evolve these, layering on additional insights, for example, referencing what specific product needs and triggers are applicable to each audience and how they might respond to different types of messaging. Grouping multiple personas into core and secondary groups means that you can maximize your results with your bread and butter audiences, whilst undertaking test and learn on the secondary audiences. One of the most important elements you'll want to add to your personas is data on lifetime value. Having intel into the long-term value of each persona could change the importance of the segment to your brand. For an e-commerce client, it will be data points around average order value and repeat purchasing. For a B2B brand, you'll be looking at things like budget potential. Also, for B2B brands, you'll want to consider the role of the persona in the buying process. So, for example, are they an end user of your product and they'll be somebody that you need the buy-in from? Or are they part of the procurement and therefore an important decision maker within that process? This is imperative to then feed into the messaging in particular, because there will be different factors that are important to each audience. Usability for the end user versus cost and value for procurement. And you can do this even if you don't have any data. So using TGI or similar to look at insights at a broader industry level can still be useful. So what I've done here is created a audience persona, and it's for a mortgage provider, and we're calling this persona Joe, the first time buyer. So what we've got here is some basic demographic information, such as the age, location, home ownership status, job title, marital and parental status, and of course the product of interest for the persona. Also, I've overlaid some financial services attitudes. So typically Joe will prefer to do his banking online. He'll use aggregators to research financial products, and he prefers not to take risks when it comes to money. And what we've also got is Joe's media consumption. So we know he's a heavy user of the internet via smartphone and mobile devices. He's a regular user of Instagram. He watches a lot of content on YouTube. He's a subscriber to Sky, and he likes to listen to Absolute Radio. And then we've got some of the brand affinities. So some of the brands that Joe particularly likes, such as Apple, so likely to be using an iPhone, and banking with a company such as Monzo. The next step now is to consider how you're going to apply the persona insights to your marketing strategy. As well as the persona insight, you'll want to think about the stage of the purchase journey your persona is at, and then how that impacts on the media channels, messaging, and landing page selection. All of these elements work in harmony to ensure that you can deliver a tailored campaign which is relevant to each persona at each stage of the purchase journey, with messaging driving them towards the appropriate action. So what we're doing is really creating a balance between the right user, the right ad, at the right moment and place, and taking into account the right price as well. You also want to make sure that you build in test and learn opportunities, particularly amongst your growth opportunity personas, so you can really understand how valuable and scalable those audiences are. So let's look at an example, and we'll use our persona, Joe, the first time buyer. At the top of the funnel, we want to make sure that Joe is aware of the brand and position the brand as the go-to for first time buyers. So here we want to target Joe based on the content he's consuming. And this will be relating to looking for a first home, and that will be on sites such as Rightmove, as well as consuming content relating to help for first-time buyers. We use channels such as YouTube and programmatic to be able to reach more people like Joe at scale, with heavily branded ads directing to a bespoke landing page. Now, as Joe moves into a more in-market phase and is actively searching for mortgages, we'll use search behavior as well as contextual and other pre-built audiences that will infer that Joe is looking for a mortgage. Again, programmatic might be relevant along with paid social, with messaging that calls out the product benefits and the USPs, directing Joe to a landing page where there's plenty of information for him to make an informed decision and to be able to really understand the product. Now, at the very bottom end of the funnel, we'll be capturing people who have visited that bespoke landing page and encouraging them to come back to the site to complete the application process. And here it will be important to highlight the ease of the application process and encourage those users to go on and complete that process.
So the next stage in the persona process is understanding the importance of regular analysis. Profiling your customer data isn't something you should do as a one-off. It's something you need to revisit regularly to understand customer or sales patterns and ensure that you can pick up on any shifts and identify new trends and opportunities. We'd recommend profiling customer data on a quarterly basis. Now, this also means you can assess how your marketing may have contributed to shifts in audience segments and quarter-on-quarter and year-on-year changes. Whether you operate within the B2C or B2B sector, it's fair to say that nothing stands still for very long, and there will often be evolving opportunities within your vertical that you will want to keep ahead of the curve on and establish an unfair advantage over your competitors. Getting under the skin of your customers and identifying opportunities through audience profiling is an effective way to be able to do this. So on to a simple checklist of actions that every business should be doing. As Amisha mentioned earlier, ensure that you have access to customer age and postcode data as a minimum. This should be easily available via your sales or customer data and is the most basic information you'll need to start gathering insights. For more complex sectors or multi-product brands, ensure that you also overlay product purchases or cross-product sales where available. Ensure that your analytics team has implemented the full GA4 setup, including the use of audience insights. You should all be using GA4 by now, as Universal Analytics is on its way out. If you've not got your GA4 set up yet, please do get in touch with the Equimedia team and we'll be able to help you facilitate this. Consider how you're going to use and visualize all of the different data points and insights. Tools like Looker Studio and Power BI will allow you to monitor and visualize data sources and trends. In most cases, you can also import offline sales or customer data to ensure you're seeing the full picture. Finally, as Amisha mentioned, take into account lifetime value analysis and feed this into your personas to better understand the value and profit that each customer base offers.
At Equimedia, we've helped many of our clients better understand their customers and use that to execute effective campaigns with holistic measurement. We can work with you based on what your specific requirements are. So whether it's profiling your audience for the first time, building on existing profiling insights to develop bespoke personas, through to analysing data to identify growth opportunities, we'd love to have a chat with you. So please do feel free to get in touch.
So that rounds off this masterclass, How Well Do You Know Your Customers? I hope you found the last 25 minutes interesting and informative. And as Amisha has already said, please do get in touch with us if you'd like to discuss anything we've shared with you today in more detail. You can either email us at inquiries@equimedia.co.uk or reach out to Amisha, me, or any of the Equimedia team on LinkedIn or via our website, equimedia.co.uk. Thanks for listening. I hope you have a great rest of the day.